All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to tackle a really big idea, one that's foundational to many of the world's religions. Why prophets? We're going to use our source material as the guide to unpack the philosophy that sees these messengers as a critical part of a grand divine plan for all of us.
So, this is really the core question, isn't it? Why do so many belief systems lean so heavily on this idea of prophets? I mean, what's their ultimate purpose? The text we're looking at today actually offers a very specific, very structured answer to that.
And here's the roadmap for how we're going to get to that answer. We'll kick things off with the divine purpose, the big why. Then we'll get into this idea of a continuous chain of guidance. After that, we'll zoom in on 5 really important figures called the archprophets, talk about the concept of a final messenger, and then finally, we'll unpack what seal of the prophets actually means.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning with that divine purpose. In the philosophy we're exploring, prophets aren't just some random afterthought. No, their existence is seen as an absolutely necessary, intentional part of creation itself.
So here's the absolute core of it. The belief is that without these divine messengers, humanity would basically be lost. Prophets are seen as essential guides, like a compass for the soul, sent to lead people towards salvation and help them reach their true potential. The thinking is, without this guidance, the whole point of creation would kind of fall flat.
And this quote from the Qur'an is really interesting because it points to this dual role. Prophets bring glad tidings, good news, hope, but they also bring a warning. And the purpose for that is pretty profound. It's so that, at the end of the day, no one can turn around and say, hey, I didn't know. It sets up this foundation of divine justice where everything is made clear.
But here's the thing, this guidance wasn't just a one-time deal. Not at all. Instead, the source describes it as this ongoing process throughout all of human history, what it calls a chain of guidance.
So the idea is, we're not just talking about 1 or 2 prophets here. We're talking about a long, unbroken line of them. Messengers who are sent to different people in different places at different times. Each one is seen as another vital link in this chain, carrying forward the same essential divine message.
Now, within that huge, long chain of guidance, there are a few figures who are seen as holding a particularly special status. They're known as the 5 archprophets.
Yep, 5. 5 prophets who really stand out from the rest, and they're given this special status for a very, very specific reason.
And here they are: Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. So what makes them so distinct? Well, according to the source, each one of them brought something totally new to the table. An entirely new divine law, new scriptures, and a new religion for humanity. This makes them these huge, pivotal turning points in the whole divine plan.
And you can see just how special they were in verses like this one. It talks about a solemn covenant made specifically with these prophets. It really highlights their unique responsibility and how central their role was in this story of divine guidance.
So we've got this long chain of guidance, and we have these 5 major turning points within it, but it's all building towards a final conclusion, a final messenger who is meant to complete the entire prophetic story.
And that final messenger is identified as the Prophet Muhammad. In this view, he's the one who closes the book on the long line of prophecy. His job was to deliver the final, complete, and definitive version of that divine message, but this time for all of humanity.
So what makes this final message so different? Well, according to the text, it has 3 key characteristics. First, it's universal. It's meant for everyone, not just one specific group of people. Second, it's permanent. It's intended to stay exactly as it is until the end of time. And third, it's considered totally comprehensive, that it satisfies all the spiritual and moral needs of humanity forever.
This whole idea of finality is so important that it actually has its own special theological term. So let's dig into what the seal of the prophets really means.
This verse right here is the main scriptural basis for that title, and that phrase, seal of the prophets, is understood to mean the very last one. Think of it like putting a wax seal on a letter. It's closed, it's finished, and nothing more can be added.
So to put it really plainly, the seal of the prophets is the doctrine that says the line of divine messengers has officially ended. The door to prophethood, in this view, is permanently closed. This means that any claim to being a prophet after Muhammad is considered, by definition, a false claim.
And there you have it, the whole narrative arc. We started with this fundamental human need for a divine purpose. We walked through a continuous chain of guidance. We highlighted those 5 key messengers, and it all culminates in this idea of a final, universal message delivered by the very last prophet. So, we'll leave you with this to chew on.
The source we've looked at today puts forward this idea of a doctrine that's complete and sufficient for every person for all of time. So the question is, what does that actually mean? Theologically, philosophically, practically? For one single teaching to satisfy all human needs forever? It's a huge thought to consider.